Hey guys, can you hear me okay? Hello, can you guys hear me? Okay, perfect. Hey everyone. All right, well, hello and welcome everyone to part 4 of our Meaningful Change series, sponsored by our lead sponsor, Praxis Precision Medicines and Neurocrim Biosciences. My name is Casey Craig. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Stella's mom. She's a 5.5-year-old SCN8A warrior that's sweet, sassy, and fiercely strong, just like all of your kiddos. Today, I come to you not only as the Cute Syndromes Foundation moderator, but also as a SCN8A mom that had to jump through hoops to prove my child's competence in the alternate communication world. Before we discuss today's topic, I wanted to take a moment and thank the SCN8A mothers that share their personal stories and experiences regarding medical decisions in a crisis in last week's event. It was both heartbreaking and heartwarming as they discussed all of our biggest fears. It was a tough subject, but I'm just so proud of our community for coming together. I'm already getting teary-eyed to normalize such a difficult conversation. It was recorded, so you can go back and watch that conversation whenever you're ready. Today's topic is much more lighthearted as we discuss how children with SCN8A utilize augmentative and alternate communications. Hillary, Shelley, Madison, Kins, and myself will all discuss what we have done to support and facilitate communication with our kiddos. If you're new to the AAC world or a seasoned AAC user, I believe you will find this conversation both enlightening and entertaining as we share our kiddos with you. Before we get started, just a few reminders. Group interaction through questions or comments will take place in the chat box. The chat box is to your right, and it allows you to type questions and/or responses for any of our guests today. To your left, there's a tab titled Expo. In this area, you will find troubleshooting if you're experiencing technical issues, or you may also type a request for help in the chat box. Our technical guru, Megan Varner, will help you tackle any technical issues you might have today. Just a friendly reminder that we want you to mark your calendars for next week. It's part 5 of our Meaningful Change series, the ins and outs of SCN8A and feeding tubes. You will hear from several SCN8A parents with children that use feeding tubes in different capacities. Maybe your child already has a tube and you're looking for tips, or your child doesn't have a tube yet, but you're researching it as a possibility for your child. Either way, we look forward to seeing you next week. Now I would like to introduce our very own Hillary Savoie. You are probably aware she is the founder and director of the Cute Syndrome Foundation and mother to Esme, the rock star cutie that writes the most imaginative stories and most hilarious jokes. Without further ado, Ms. Hillary Savoie.
Hi, Casey. Can you hear me okay?
I can.
All right. Well, thanks so much for the intro, and really excited to dig into this topic today. I think this is
Me too.
And I'm glad you're gonna hang out here because you're gonna be talking with us in just a second. But I want to just give a little bit of an intro to the families. As Casey said, today we're going to be talking about augmentative communication, something that is so important in our community, as so many of our children have significant and multifaceted communication challenges that can stem from all kinds of sources: apraxia, autistic-like characteristics, movement disorders, motor planning limitations, learning and cognitive disabilities, cortical visual impairment, stereotypies, and beyond, right? So it makes communication for our children particularly difficult and complex. And this is an incredibly personal topic for me, as it is for all of our speakers today, because of my experience with my daughter, Esme. Esme, we were able to realize she was reading at around, well, she had started sometime before or recently after turning 4. And she taught herself. We hadn't taught her, which is really sort of stunning. And knowing her as a now 10-year-old, not surprising. The challenge really with her was figuring out that this was a skill that she had, and then finding ways for her to demonstrate it. And, in consideration of both her abilities, her skills, her challenges. Working with children to communicate is challenging on so many levels, not the least of which is advocating for access to support and tools. But to me, it is one of the most essential and important things that we can do as parents to help support a better quality of life for our children. And the pride that you're going to see today in these videos of these kids communicating will make that entirely clear. This all begins with doing something that is super normal for most parents, but seems radical to do with our children, which is presuming their competence, presuming that they can understand, that they are already communicating with the tools that they have, that they would communicate more if they could, and that what they want to communicate is important. And that's where the work begins. So with that, I'd like to invite our other guests today, Ken's, Madison, Shelley, to pop on screen with us. And again, guys, it's just that share audio and video button. As they join us, I just want to say all of these women are, I'm sure, familiar to you. They're superstar moms, TCSF volunteers, trusted community members, friends, and they're here to talk about some of the aspects of their experiences with AAC. Welcome.
Hi, everybody.
All right, so I think what we can just start with is just taking a moment for each of you to just introduce yourselves, your child, and just briefly let us know what brings you here today, and we can start with Madison.
Hey guys, I'm Madison, Mia's mom. So I'm sure you guys have seen videos and pictures of Mia either trying to say words or use her device. She uses many forms of communication with us. She points, she knows some signs, she grunts and screams. She uses a chart at school that's around the room, and we're working on getting her fluent, I guess, in her AAC device. She loves using it. But a little bit about her story is that we started teaching her signs early on, even before we knew anything was wrong with her. I did the same with my son because he liked to yell when he wanted more food. So I did the same with Mia, and she never really caught on. But after we got her diagnosis, I'm like, okay, well, I really, really need to teach her these signs, because what if she doesn't talk? I knew nothing about I didn't know they were a thing, AAC devices. I just thought if you couldn't talk, you needed to know sign language. So when we went to the Baltimore gathering, there was a presentation on AAC devices. And when we got back home, I went straight to her therapist and asked about one, and she was on board. She thought, let's see if Mia can do it. She was a little over 2 at the time, and she caught right on. They started using it at therapy, just for simple words. And she gave us one. She put it on our iPad a few months later to bring home so we could work with her as well. And Shelley has a video of, like, within the first week after we brought it home, of Mia using it. She can share with us.
Love.
What do you love?
Ball.
You love a ball? Show me ball.
Ball. Love.
So you see, she was excited to be able to, she could even say the word ball, but she liked to push the buttons and have things said. She likes to tell us when she wants to eat and stuff like that. So we just got her real device approved. It will be shipped to us through insurance. And I must say that it's been a pretty easy thing for us to do. She has a great therapist, but I'm also sure it's not easy for everyone in the community, as easy as it was for us. We've just been very fortunate, I guess. So moving on, at school, when she first started, we wanted her to bring her device because we didn't know what the classroom was like. But her teacher informed us they have charts at every spot around the room. And I said, well, I'll send her device with her. And you guys can kind of figure out what she wants to use while she's there. And she never really used her device at school, probably because the other kids weren't doing it. She likes to do what the other kids do. So she uses the chart really well at school. I'm not sure if Shelly has a picture of it. It's pretty basic. It has, her teacher told me that when she's at school, her favorite words she likes to use are the emotions. Her friends, they have pictures of the friends in the classroom, and she likes to say if something's good or bad, like whether she likes it or not. Like if they're going to eat or something, she points to the good, or if she doesn't want to do something, she'll point to the bad. So it's a little humorous at times. And then next year, we'll probably start sending her device to school with her so she can just hopefully be able to use that more often and get better with it. So that's about it for us. I think I covered it all.
Thank you so much, Madison. We really appreciate you sharing that experience. And I'm so happy that it's been a relatively easy process for you, because you're right, that isn't always everyone's experience. And so hopefully that gives hope that maybe these devices are slowly getting easier for our families to access. So I think up next we have Casey to talk to us a little bit about Miss Stella. Awesome use of AAC.
All right. So much like Madison, my kind of exposure to communication devices was at a gathering. So it was our very first gathering at DC. Stella was about a year old. And when they talked about AEC, I say AEC because that's a radiology term. So AAC. So when they talked about it, I was like, man, I wonder if Stella can do this. And they said everyone can use some form, and there's not a too early of a time to introduce it. So I thought, all right, maybe I will start talking to our therapist about this. And so we started with switches. She really liked recordable switches. So we kind of started with that, with cause and effect, that sort of thing. And then her speech therapist thought, you know what? I think she can do an eye gaze system. I'm like, really? You think so? She goes, I think we should try it. So I'm like, okay, because she's not as consistent with her hands. So we thought, well, let's try her eyes. So if you are aware, Stella has cortical vision impairment, so CVI. And so I wasn't sure if eye gaze was going to work for her because of her vision impairment, but we found out it worked really well. So much like I think almost every one of us here, I'm always worried about will Stella perform when she needs to. So when you think about an actual like high-tech communication device, you typically have to go through an AAC evaluation. And so I was really worried that what if Stella had a lot of seizures that day, or, we had to drive a couple hours to get to that evaluation center. And what if we show up and they're like, this girl can't do this. Why should we recommend that she have one of these? So her speech therapist decided that we would start using the communication device during speech therapy. So it was like once a week. And we did that for a couple months. And then she contacted the rep. So we were using the Forbes Winslate. And she contacted the rep and said, hey, I have this client that I really think would do well with a home trial. And so she was able to set it up where the rep came to our house. She set up everything for us, showed me how to use it, and we got to actually keep it for a couple of weeks at home, which was perfect, because then when Stella was in a, state of mind, if you will, in a good form that she could practice. And even when she wasn't doing so great, we could still see how well she was doing. So that got her comfortable with her device. And I'm going to have Shelly go ahead and show this video. This is actually at home during our trial period.
Stella, can you pick the car next? Can you pick the car next, Stella? Can you pick the car? Thank you.
So, because we were so worried that she wasn't going to perform, we took so many videos of her successfully using it. That way, if we show up and she wouldn't do anything, at least we had the videos to prove that she really was using this. And the way that Stella uses her communication device is not always 100% communication driven. With Stella, it's a form of play for her, because even switches or playing with toys can be difficult for her physically. So we can hook her communication device up, and there are so many different games. So that one right there was a picture where you got to pick the item that she wanted to draw a picture of, and then it plays music. So it also has different pages. We have a few words, and then we have people. So we have pictures of people. One of them is, "Hi, my name is Stella," and it's a picture of her. And then we have my picture, my husband, my son, and it's really cute because sometimes, just like a typical child, she'll go up to the people and go, "Mommy, mommy, mommy, mommy," like a bajillion times all in a row. So that's always fun. Sometimes I'm like, "Oh, let's just take a break from the the communication device for right now." But so we ended up, because that home trial, we were able to do our AAC evaluation, and it actually went really well. And so we have one of our own. We did go through insurance. Our primary insurance picked up part of it, and then Medicaid was able to pick up the rest of it. It is expensive. I think the total bill between the device and 2 mounts was like $18,000. So it is expensive. I said it's her first car that we have, but trying to think of what else I wanted to mention too. That we use the communication device, but we also use switches, and we got a couple pictures of Stella later to show, or a video, I believe. And those can be super simple, because I know that this whole process is really overwhelming. And you kind of have to go in with your hands up, ready to fight, right? On my child needs this. And so we kind of started out smaller when I didn't, when I had a lot on my plate, that, okay, let's just use some switches. And so one of the biggest things we used switches was at Halloween this last year. So she had 2 switches, and it said trick or treat, and the other one was happy Halloween. And it was so amazing, because when we would go up to from door to door, instead of people feeling uncomfortable because Stella wasn't saying or doing anything, she would hit her switch, and they were like, "Oh!" And so then they felt like they had that connection with her. So little things like that can, and she was excited. You could definitely tell she was excited to be able to participate like Lincoln. So, looking through my notes here, I think I hit everything that I wanted to hit on, but we can chat more later if something comes up.
That's awesome, Casey. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for highlighting, I think, the need for play and fun. And, so much of this is driven for our kids by, they need to perform. They need to show that they can use these things. They need to. And instead of letting them just be kids who, kids play with language, and they interact with people with language in goofy ways and fun ways. And I love that Stella is able to do that.
Yes.
So thank you for sharing. And next, I think we have Ken's up to talk about Miss Addie. Yes. Okay. Oh, you're muted still, Ken's. No, not yet. If you're having trouble unmuting, if you want to, you can refresh and pop back in. That might help. I'll give her a second. I am so excited, having watched Addie with her device and the progress that she's made recently. So I'm really excited that Ken's is going to share this with us. So Michelle, did your birth to 3 speech therapist help you guys get started with the communication devices, or was it through outpatient speech therapy and private insurance? So I think everyone has probably a slightly different experience. For us, it was through a school age speech therapist, but we did also have an earlier trial device, which was the Toby, when Ez was still in early intervention. So I don't know about others. It sounds like Madison, Mia's is through school.
We have an outpatient therapist. We never did the early intervention because I had already searched out. I didn't know about early intervention, but she has Medicaid, and her therapist just was really awesome with it. She basically did all the paperwork, had me sign some things, and sent it off.
Okay. Kenz, have you been able to unmute? No, not yet. Okay. I think also the other thing that's really important to know about communication devices is with school age kids, they can be covered sometimes through your district, depending on the district, depending on the setup. But it is probably preferable for people to have them covered through insurance, because if it's covered through the district, it belongs to the school district for that child, as opposed to if it's through insurance, it's your personal device and it can come and go easily with you. It looks like Kenz is still working to unmute. So maybe Shelly, would you like to pop on and do your talk for Nico, and we can give Kenz some time to sort out the.
I can. Sorry, it's hard for me to toggle back and forth with the presentation and the speaking part, but of course, when Hillary and I talked about doing this presentation, I get so excited because we've been on this journey for a very long time. For almost exactly 5 years now, we've been working with some sort of alternative communication for Nico. When he was really little, before the age of 2, he was developing normally and had some babbling and a lot of face-to-face communication. But like many of our kids, that was taken away with a blur of seizures. Just so many seizures came so fast and took it all away. And when Nico was about 2, he was 17 months old. We noticed that he was withdrawn, and I really mean completely withdrawn. So his autistic features were paramount to everything after his seizures. And he was happily just playing quietly in a corner without looking at people. He wasn't even playing. He was just sitting. He would just sit for an entire day. And we needed to get some sort of communication going. And our pediatrician linked us with a speech therapist, and we decided to try PECS. In Canada, and like many of you in the US or anywhere, we were told, this is the only way. This is how you do it. This is, there was a set order of, steps required before we could do anything else. And we had tried when Nico was a baby, and when he was really little, we did some sign language, but Nico had no mobility really on his right side. He was mobile, but he couldn't control what his right side did. So, and as we know with sign language, it's two-handed, and you have to be able to motor plan and do things. So we couldn't, there was no such thing as, apart from more, that's about all Nico could do with sign language. And you'll see in his little video, he does combine very many modalities of communication, but that took a lot of steps. We started with PECS, and it was a simple picture card, like a 2-inch picture card stuck on a block because he couldn't pick up the card, and he would just hand us a card for more. We learned very quickly that that wasn't enough. Nico needed to learn the actual basics of communication, that there was a communication partner, being in most cases me and him, and that it went further than asking for more food. So we had to spend an entire year, and Hillary's going to talk about themes of this. This wasn't a one and done. Nico learned all of this in, a month. This is a 5-year journey that we've been on. And one entire year of that journey was therapy on increasing his motivators. And not even speech. We gave up speech for a whole year at the age of 2 and worked on play and learning that there are more fun things than eating. And once he was able to, want more things and do more things, we continued with the PECS, and started exchanging pictures for bubbles, for pancakes, for hugs, for, you know, a lot of things. And it was pretty awesome. And I'm going to show this video here. This is one of the last steps that Nico had to prove with PECS. He had to prove, and I think he's about 2.5, and no, he's 4. He's 4. This is 2 years into our journey. He's about 4.5 years old. And he had to travel to a communication partner with a card and make a sentence with cards. So he wanted more bubbles. So I'm going to play the video. No volume.
Here are the bubbles. I love bubbles. You want bubbles?
Oh my gosh. Hillary and I were talking earlier, and you just get stuck in these little blurs of watching videos. And this is like a 4-minute video that I had to, you know, snip out at the best 30 seconds. And you can see right at the beginning, he does sign for more. And I can't see what you guys saw because it was a bit glitchy on my end. Did it run smooth? It was okay. So we had been doing this communication bit for a few minutes, and he immediately just went more. But because we were doing a mom run therapy session, I forced him to ask properly. So then he grabs the card and runs it to me. Again, that wasn't correct. So I had to place it back on the board. He had to select the card, put it on the sentence strip, and then deliver it to me and point, I want bubbles. And once he could do all of those steps, you know, we were given the okay to make an appointment and a request to look at getting a device with a voice and a lot easier. I loved the PECS. There's a lot of controversy with, you know, just give the child the device, give them the words, give them all or nothing. And in Nico's specific case, and all of you know your children, Nico needed to learn communication first. And we needed to, as the two of us were a team, Nico and I, we needed to do this. And we went through all the hoops, and he got a device. And his device is the same as Mia's. He did the LAMP Words for Life on an iPad, and we stuck with the iPad. And he did great. And the hard things with that, you know, there was a lot of, you know, with all of the methods that you choose, we chose the LAMP Words for Life with the iPad. We got approval. We got funding, partial funding because we're in Ontario. So it wasn't all of it. We did have to pay out of pocket for about 30%. Got it home. And then we moved. We moved. That meant no more support. So I had this brand new device, this brand new program, and no one in our area knew how to use it. And I mean no one, like I'm talking at the Children's Hospital and the Center for Augmentative and Alternative Communication. Nobody knew how to use it. So that sucked. So another thing was we didn't know we were moving when we chose it. So that's the other, you know, hard thing. But I went and did a lot of training. This wasn't just, you know, speech therapy. In Ontario, we got 6 one-hour sessions for 6 weeks in every 6 months. So that was it. So I had to supplement with parent training. I got to visit Hillary in New York because that's where the training was. It was in New York State. And I learned as much as I could and taught Nico along the way. And he's had his device. It'll be 3 years this year, but after almost exactly 5 years, Nico finally uttered his first word, and it was me. And I've shown that video a million times. And since then, his speech has exploded. His ability to communicate the things that he needs and wants and stories and jokes and just be him has been pretty cool. So don't let anybody tell you also giving kids picture cards or word cards or a device is going to inhibit their speech, because with Nico, it actually developed and helped, and it was pretty awesome. It gave him a voice, and we still use the device because he can't communicate everything he needs and wants still. So it's always right with him. He had a hard time this weekend. Oh gosh, as some of the moms know from book club, he couldn't he was breathing funny, and he didn't know how to tell us, but he knew on his iPad to type, mouth, and he told us that there was a hair stuck, and we still don't know what happened, but that's part of Nico's story. I hope I summed it up enough. I'm always here and I love sharing it. So I will share one-on-one with anybody. We can do this, in a format like this, like, again, like if we just want to have a conversation. And I think the important thing is, pick somebody you want to chat with that's doing kind of the similar things that you're doing, and start asking them questions, because I know all the ladies on here would be happy to share with you.
Thanks, Shelley. And I think it's so great to have Nico in here as an example of a kid who has attained speech and did, as Shelley said, in a very stepwise manner. Some of our kids have split skills, and stepwise manners don't work for them because they won't get past step 1, but they can start at step 4. And I think it's just important that we all recognize that each of our kids is different, and each of these examples gives us something to work from and draw from. So thanks, Shelley. And now I think Ken's. Let's see, can you talk? Hey. Wait. Uh-oh. No, we can't hear you. You're unmuted on the app, but it seems like maybe the computer or device you're on is not picking you up. What?
Are your headphones inactivated nearby? Because sometimes you have your AirPods, maybe the microphone on your AirPods is, no?
Nope. Okay, so let's see. Do you want to try to refresh one more time?
Or connect your AirPods?
Oh, Megan says, is there another option under microphone and settings that you can try?
Pain with the microphone.
I know. When we've got to have one.
Yay! Yay!
She's
Yay!
here.
You didn't hear what I was saying when I was refreshing. Luckily, I found my parents' computer because my phone was not picking up audio. Sorry, guys.
Well, no worries. No worries at all. We're happy that worked. Okay, so do you want to, we have Addie's video pulled up, and you want to give, whenever we cheer, Henry smiles. So I think we should cheer. Can we all just cheer one more time?
Yay! Well, I love you, Henry.
That's so sweet.
All right, Ken, I'll hand it over to you.
So for those of you who don't know me, first of all, Mackenzie, and everybody calls me Kens. Just call me Kens. Mom to Addie. Addie is 7 years old. And I'm excited to be talking to you as a mom of a child that uses AAC now. But I will tell you that as recently as a year ago, I was still frustrated mom that was getting nowhere with my fight to be able to try AAC. High-tech AAC, I should say. Addie has been using low tech. She had been trialing switches at school. Much like Casey said with Stella, Addie doesn't have control of her hands, so she was not using switches consistently. So I was constantly being told, well, she doesn't use switches consistently. There's no way she's going to use an eye gaze device. She's not ready. And I was told that there was a checklist that had to happen before she was able to be trialed. And this is what school told me. I fought school for 2 years. Every IEP meeting, there were tears, and they kept saying, you know, she's just not there. She's just not there. And I said to them last year, for those of you who are not familiar, I was raised in New York, so I very much have a New York attitude of trying to get things if things aren't going the right way, I pull out New York and I fight. And I told them that if Addie did not have a trial at this time next year, there were going to be bigger problems. And they were all like, okay, we'll give it a year and we'll try and see like what happens. And still I had no help whatsoever. So finally, I believe it was Casey. I don't remember specifically who. Somebody had mentioned in the group for me to ask Addie's doctor about trialing a device or what I could do through them. And I'm so glad that they did, because on Addie's last hospitalization, her doctor had come in and I said, oh, let me just put this out there in passing. I said, we've been denied time and time again of not being able to get a trial or even just put her in front of a device to see if this is something she can do. And her doctor looked at me and was like, we have a whole clinic downstairs. Let's get you in. So she wrote the referral. I called and they were like, it's a 9 to 12 month wait list. Would you like to be put on? At that point, 2 years later, who cared? I know that sometimes like it seems like forever to go, but then the next thing you know, that time frame comes and you're just like, oh, I wish I would have signed up to begin with. That's all that lost time. I ended up getting, thanks to COVID, actually, I ended up getting a phone call in June. And Addie was offered an opportunity for appointments that were canceled through DuPont. So we had gone to the hospital, put her in front of a device, and we were floored. She was able to do what I knew she was able to do the entire time. I knew it was in there. She was able to navigate. It was not easy. I do want to say this is not an easy thing for our kids to do, even if you throw them in front of a device. This is actually very exhausting. Our therapist I'm sure they probably made you guys on here as well. They made me try it as well to see what it feels like to do it. And it really is physically exhausting. So I don't want you to go in thinking like, my kid's going to sit in front of a screen and all of a sudden be like doing all these amazing things. It's a lot of hard work. It's very similar to physical therapy and occupational therapy. But this is giving our kids a chance to have a voice that for however long they've been with us, they haven't had the opportunity. They've been pretty much locked. They've been locked inside themselves without the chance to communicate. So this is giving them a chance. I had a lot of pushback, like I said. So once we had gotten the device, she did great. And then all of a sudden we started having technical problems because, technical problems as I didn't just experience myself. And then we had started with the Tobii Dynabox, and then it was just one thing after another. It just wasn't working for us. And it wasn't her not being able to use the device itself wasn't working. And the rep didn't even understand what's going on. So her therapist had offered us a different device that I didn't want to use, but it's actually the one that's in the video up. And Shelly, you can actually share the video now.
I know I took it away. I want you to tell me something. Oh, wait. I don't know why she swallowed. Perhaps we'll see.
So she said more, read, go. And this is a PRC Accent 1400, and I actually don't particularly care for the graphics on the device. I thought that the ones on the Tobii were much more eye appealing, but clearly Addie thought otherwise. And it doesn't, I wouldn't have known that had the Tobii not worked, but her therapist had actually mentioned to me, it's worth checking as many devices as you can before you settle on one, because you don't know if there's a device that might work better. Like Addie did great with the Tobii, but she's actually doing much better with the PRC, and we never would have known had we just stuck with the one. Here in Maryland, you get a device and you're with it for 5 years. So you have to make sure that you really like the device that you're getting. So we have had a trial. We've actually had the trial that's supposed to be back by December 6th or December 7th of last year, and we've kept it so that Addie can be consistent in her training. because much like everything else, you have to be on top of it. It is a commitment. You have to have patience. I want to say to you guys as moms, we fight so much for everything for our kids all the time. This is a battle. I'm really glad that Madison and Casey, you guys didn't have as much trouble with insurance covering stuff. That's awesome. For some of us, like myself, it will be a battle. So I want you to know it will be a battle to get it approved. And it's also, it's a commitment to be consistent in teaching our kids how to use the device. It's a lot of work, but it's worth it if you're ready. Please don't guilt yourself if you're not there and you're not ready, or if your kids aren't able to do the device yet, or if pictures work best for them, start there. That's all communication, and that's all important stuff. And every little piece that you guys do makes a difference. So please do not feel like it's another weight you need to carry, that it's a burden, that it's hard, that we're just so tired. We are all here to help you navigate through it and to give you tips and tricks and whatever you guys need. It's hard. It's a lot of work, but it's worth it. I think that is, yeah, don't guilt yourselves ever. And please reach out anytime, because you never know. Your kid might tell you more read, go.
We can always hope. I get teary watching these, like every time. So as you could tell, I think as it was going earlier, so happy you've been able to hang on to the device. And I think this is like huge pro tip. We were able to do this with Esme's wheelchair. When she got her test wheelchair, she did so well with it that I called and I started crying, and I was like, you can't take this away from her. And so we were able to keep it. I tried the same thing with her device and it did not work. So she was without it for quite some time, and she actually started biting her friends at school for the first time. And I think it was communication frustration, and it quite clearly was. And I think also Ken's so important to highlight that this is a huge fight sometimes, and it's wonderful when it isn't, but sometimes we do have to shore ourselves up. I did a lot of screaming at Medicaid in order to get Esme's device. So if anyone needs help screaming at Medicaid, I offer my services. Ken's also, okay, perfect. Okay, so I guess we'll move on to Ezzy. This monkey, my monkey. So as I mentioned, Ez has been reading since she was 4, at least. She's now using an eye-gaze enabled PRC tablet that's very much like Addie's, except a little smaller. And, you know, as Casey mentioned, that $18,000 price tag, Ezzy's is very similar. It is a little shocking. And it is also a little shocking to put a device like that into a school bag every day, send it off and have it come home coated in food or some kind of weird thing like that. It was, in our case, entirely covered by private insurance, but because of the way New York State supplemental Medicaid works, it had to be run through both insurances. And Medicaid, of course, was the sticky wicket, even though they weren't the one that actually footed the bill. Hence the yelling. So, and it was a huge fight with a very, very supportive speech therapist. And it took way longer than it should have, but it was entirely worth it. And I guess, Shelly, if you could play, this is Ezzy at her dance program.
Whatever you catch a squirrel. Ow. How do you catch a squirrel? Catch a squirrel? How do you catch a squirrel? Climb up a tree and act like a nut.
So if you missed that, that is one of Esme's pre-set jokes on her talker. And the joke was, how do you catch a squirrel, climb up a tree, and act like a nut? And this is I think one of the most amazing experiences of my life was Ezzy in this dance program, which is in Harlem, with children with disabilities and children without. And she was the least verbal child, or one of the least verbal children in the program. She, in previous years, was very beloved, but never got to hold a room. And with her talker, she loved holding the room. In fact, she opened the entire show, our final performance, with jokes. And she loves to pause for the punchline and keep everyone at the edge of their seat. And it makes me think about how much communication is about power, and the power to connect, the power to keep everyone waiting for your next line, the power to make people laugh. And our kids are often lacking in power. Currently, we have a teacher at home with Ez, named Kaylee, who is working with the extensive speech therapy at school. And they've been able to together improve Ezzy's functional communication significantly. She is showing what an impressive learner she is. She's advocating for herself to, ask for what she wants, what works best for her. She said, told Kaylee recently she couldn't see the multiplication table that Kaylee had bought for her, so they bought a new one. Using what types of communication work well for her in any given setting. So she taps. So if you hold out your hand, you can say tap for yes, or you can give her two choices. So she'll tap, she nods, she says, uh-huh. She uses word cards, which she's been using for ages, the eye gaze, and occasionally she comes out with a word. And we let her choose what's working best for her. And that's all really fantastic. It's great that she's showing that she can do grade level math, and all of that. But what is really most interesting to me is how quickly this has evolved into her expressing herself. So Kaylee now has a nickname. Kaylee is her secretary. So if she says secretary, she's referring to her teacher. And she understands that Kaylee is her teacher, her friend, her secretary, and she's very concerned about how long Kaylee will be with her. So she says things to her like changes, how long we think, teacher, friend, secretary, saying, when is this going to change? Are you going to hang out here? Or are you going to leave me high and dry? And she uses her talker to figure out ways to express things that are hard to find words for, like think sleep for dreams. And lately, she's been telling stories. She tells stories about things that have actually happened to her. She takes magical twists and funny twists on them. And it's absolutely stunning to watch. And it's something that I couldn't have possibly dreamed for her. And so at 10 years old, Ez is obviously a kid who could benefit from a device. But what I think is really important for everyone to understand is that when this device was brought to her school to test, she refused to use it. This was 3 years ago, I guess now. And they put up a small grid with, 2 or 4 choices, and she refused to engage with it. They tried for almost an hour with her, and they videotaped the whole thing. I wasn't there, but they sent me the video, and you can hear, when we've all been there, like in a therapy room when the adults just give up and they all start talking amongst themselves. And they had given up. They were packing up. They were ready to say, like, okay, I guess we'll try again next year. And luckily, this amazing rep for PRC just said, you know what, I'm going to try this game. And it was a little bug flying around a bee, and you have to look at it, and it would make a noise. And he wasn't even paying attention. He put it up and he started packing. And all of a sudden he heard, I don't know what the sound was, but like, bzz, 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 and he said she was going so fast catching that bee that it was faster than he could do it. He couldn't believe it. And so what he then did is pulled up a communication grid of 24, and Ez started talking. So this is something I've seen with her over and over, and I suspect it's not unusual in many of our kids. If the bar is too low, she's not going to play along. She is not interested in that. And that could be confused for lack of understanding or lack of interest instead of what it is, which is, I'm not going to show you my skills unless you give me like something worthwhile to show you. She is, very clear. She's not a performing monkey. She is a little girl who has notions about how things should be. And so we have found, because there are times that we do need her to demonstrate things, namely because like at school, they were still asking her to do the same things 4 years in. We have to explain to her that if, you show your skills, we'll document them, and then we can move on. And then we have to stand to that. We have to insist that her therapists and her teachers maintain that level for her. But I think it's just something I want to say, our children who are particularly locked in, are missing, maybe able to do a whole lot more than what we realize. And we have to absolutely presume their competency. We do have a few more slides that, Shelley, if you could advance, that we want to hit on a few things. I know we only have a few minutes left, and I'm happy we spent so much time talking about each of these individual kids, but you guys can all unmute and we'll just fly through these pretty quickly. But if you have something to add, jump in. So just for general takeaway, different varieties of communication can be used in parallel or in different settings. These things can coexist. You're not going to mess your kid up unless you see it being harmful for your kid and it's not working for their personality. Don't not do it just because someone said it's not helpful. Communication tends to beget communication. Does anyone else have?
Well, that's just like us. We use more than just our voices to talk. So it's giving them more opportunity to find their voice. So nonverbal, verbal, written, pictures, all sorts of stuff. Giving them as many options as possible is a good thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I was going to say too, and outside of therapy, I take anything Nico utters, points to, signs for, uses his device. It's communication is communication, and there's no wrong. He's never wrong in whatever he's doing. He has, like, Madison has the picture board here. Nico still has that, because like you guys said, the cost of the device, he doesn't travel with his iPad in his hands. It's locked in his backpack. So on the side of his wheelchair, he has like a zip tie picture, a couple picture boards all stapled together. So if he doesn't have the word, he can flip through and find what he's looking for.
Can we check the next slide? I know we just have a few minutes left, so I want to be sure we hit all these points. Our children have to prove themselves a lot to access devices. So, and can you show this video?
Yeah, you have to.
Addie, because
Oh my goodness!
I'll play it again. It's
Oh, you
love
love
You're
it.
bringing tears to my eyes. Good job. Good job.
So these videos are awesome and wonderful little rabbit holes to fall down, but they also are documentation and proof. And as Casey said, it's so important to push for accommodations like home trials, not going through the steps in order if that's what's appropriate for your child, trials of multiple devices. And also, if you do not have a helpful speech therapist, making end runs through doctors and directly to the device companies. We can do next slide. You want to play, Ezzy?
So if our clue word is combine the senior total from January and February. Which operation?
Addition.
Yes, addition. Yes, we would be doing addition. Nice job, Effie.
She's such a boss. Whatever.
Come on now, challenge me.
So, and I don't know if you guys noticed, but there's cards up front, right? So device, choice of cards, whatever works for her, but making sure that we give adequate time. Also, so as you challenge, you need to give them time to process. Their brains may need just a little bit more to do all of these steps. As Ken says, this is exhausting work that they're doing. And likewise, challenging, not just challenging them, but challenging their teams to challenge them and push them to raise the bar.
Yeah,
We can do, yeah. Oh, okay, yay. Stella, can we see that one? Yes.
She loves singing, and sometimes we have to do things other than sing, right? So I thought I'll just record myself singing a song, and then whenever she wants to hear it, she can hit it. So that's a Big Mac switch, and I went ahead and put a link to just on Amazon. You guys can buy it. I think right now it looks like it was around $135, which I know isn't cheap, but comparing it to $18,000, it's more manageable. But it might be something that your school has on hand that you can try at home, or there might be like a communication grant or something like that can help buy. We have 2 of them, or they're perfect like birthday or Christmas presents because so many people have no idea what to buy our kids. So a couple people can go in together and get them. So sometimes I'll even have 2 songs so she can pick which one she wants to listen to, or more, or stop, or go. Sometimes we'll even just take it on a walk, and whenever she says go, we go, and then I stop and I won't go again until she hits it. So those are just kind of some fun things that we've used those switches for.
Also, the Build-A-Bear workshops, you can buy the little recordable. They're a little bit of a hard hit. They're about this size, so depending on what kind of acuity children have, but they're like $6, and you can only record something like 30 seconds. But for a go stop game or something like that, that could be really helpful just to see whether the bigger investment makes sense. And Ken, sorry, I think I interrupted you.
Yeah, no, you didn't interrupt. I didn't actually start talking, so you're good. I was just going to add to Casey saying about school, don't be afraid to ask for stuff. Like people are not going to offer it to you. They're not going to offer you they're especially not going to offer the eyegaze device because of the cost. But a lot of times people don't think to say like, hey, would you like to try a switch? So please don't be afraid to ask. Ask your kids' teachers, ask their early intervention, ask school. You can ask their principals. Like, don't be afraid to just, put it out there, because you can't get something if you don't ask for it. You can't assume that people are going to offer it to you. So go ahead and ask as many people as you want to, and even more than what you want to. Just ask as many people. And then there might be some also, if there are people close to you that use device, ask if you can get together and see if your kid can, maybe before you borrow it, but like have a play date or whatever, and see like, hey, maybe switches work or whatever. Don't be afraid to ask anybody.
And
again, we're all here for help.
Yeah. I was just saying, Nico's preschool bought one for the $100. The preschool had it, and he participated in circle time when they would record his name on it so that he could say Nico, and all he had to do was push the button to participate in the circle activity. It was amazing.
Also, draw little flashcards with words on them, and dry erase boards and little pictures. I did flashcards with Ezzy. They were just flashcards from Barnes and Noble, and that was how we learned colors. And so I think trying things while you wait for higher tech solutions or more costly solutions, just keep trying stuff, and it's not all going to work. Don't make it perfect, because it might get chucked. Like, just make it work.
And don't up if it doesn't.
Yeah.
And like with us, I know I kind of touched on it, but me as therapist, instead of having us go out and buy a device for her, she's like, well, if you have one at home, bring it in, I'll put it on for you. So that's something, I know not all devices will be like that, but it's worth a try.
And I think we have one last slide of Mr. Nico.
Yeah.
Being awesome.
My name is Nico. I am Shaheen. I have SCN8A. I learned how to talk this year.
I just have to say, I'm so stinking proud of this little guy. Nico works, and it didn't just come to him. He works so hard, and he wants to do homework. He wants to practice his words. He just wants to practice everything. So I just love that he just puts so much effort into everything he does, because to me, he's simply just perfect. And I just think it's pretty awesome that he's speaking now.
And I think
in general,
that's,
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I think just in general that, I mean, if every single one of our kids, when you see these, excited, like just the excitement from them, from us, that is so rewarding.
Absolutely. And I think it is just a really good reminder for all of our families that there are, don't let somebody tell you that CVI or a movement disorder or a lack of success with text or any other excuse that they can come up with is a reason not to explore these options. And failure with one should not mean that you can't move on. It means then you move on and you try something else. And as Shelly said, Nico works so hard. All of our kids work so hard, and developing communication with our children is absolutely hard work for them and for us. And it's frustrating and difficult sometimes, but it also should be fun and meaningful. So I think that that's, what I love about each of these kids and each of these stories today is, as Casey said, that pride and that excitement. And I think the thing that I really want us to leave all of our families on today, the note is that you know your child. And not one of these stories, they're all success stories, and not one of them works the same way because they're each individual children. And it requires, knowing your child and advocating for the things that they need when they need them. And again, as everyone has said, please turn to this group. We can continue this conversation. We didn't leave time for Q&A today because we figured this was the better use of our time. We can do more specific questions and discussions in the support group. Please reach out to us individually or on that thread in the support group once we get that posted. So we are a little over time, so I'm just going to wrap it up real quick. Next week, we'll meet again, as Casey said, for a conversation about feeding tubes, and we will be joined by several SCN8A parents, as well as the founder of the Feeding Tube Awareness Foundation, who is a friend of mine and a mom of a little boy with a feeding tube. And we're going to talk about feeding tubes. Nearly half of our children have challenges eating by mouth, so we need to discuss what the options are for their use. And I will be posting a question thread in the support group as well to just gather ideas for things you guys want to talk about. And then the week after, we have our closing event with another community discussion with Praxis Precision Medicine. So, and then we will be done with weekly meetings for a little bit. So again, thank you today to all of our guests for showing up and engaging so openly and meaningfully and sharing their awesome children and the amazing and difficult work they're doing. And thank you again to our event sponsors, our lead sponsor, Praxis Precision Medicines, as well as our other sponsor, Neurocrine Biosciences. Thank you, Casey, for hosting, and thank you, Megan, for tech support, and Shelly for running our slides. And most importantly, thank you, everyone who showed up today to witness these amazing kids, and we will see you next week. Okay, bye, everybody. Thank you.